Guys, this is Denis Oakley again, and today I'm having a look at the Tenaga Nasional business model. Tenaga Nasional is the major utility company in Peninsular Malaysia, supplying electricity and power to millions, 26 million Malaysians and the businesses and the corporations that they work for. So today I am going to run through the business model canvas for them, and then I've got a few extra goodies for you thrown in at the end. So to start with, over on the right hand side, we've basically got three groups of customer segments at the macro level. We've got the residential customers, people like you and me living in our houses, buying electricity to power our aircon, our TVs and our fridges. Then we have the commercial properties, shops, retail, malls, people who are larger. They're using a lot more electricity than us. They're the big shops with the aircon on the whole day, but leaving the front doors open. So they get through a bit of juice, and they're a larger segment of customers. Finally, you've got the industrial ones. These are the guys who use shed loads of electricity. So think about your petrol refineries, your aluminium smelters, people like this who sort of use the same amount of electricity as hundreds of thousands of normal residential customers. And so the value proposition, Tenaga says on his website that its value proposition is the provision of electricity, and I think it is right in that. I think a little bit it's too narrow, possibly a value proposition. Let me just move this down a little bit, get me a bit more centered. It's too narrow because possibly it's power, because power gives them more capacity to change, but provision of electricity, they make it, they generate it, they transmit it, they distribute it out to the people. So that's the value proposition. With electricity, you can change your life better, brighter, as the logo goes. So customer relationships, like any big utility, they have mass automated billing with zero personal cost involvement. You have the connection teams, the people who turn up and put the electricity on. You might actually see them, or it might just be a guy fiddling with a meter outside. And then of course you have the meter readers, and that really is the customer relationship. Is very, very low. Basically your electricity is on the whole time, and the only reason you should be ending up having a contact with Tenaga is because either you've been disconnected because of some sort of problem with a substation or similar, or because you've been a bad boy and haven't paid and you need to work through their billing department. So the channels Tenaga reaches the society with, basically you go to the shop, the billing centers, the regional places, and you sign up there and you pay. Maybe I should have the internet, because a lot of billing is now done through the internet and by direct debits. Here I was thinking about channels as being how do you reach new customers, but I think arguably I could really add in the internet as a payment mechanism, and also banks with direct debits. Those would be pretty reasonable to add there, and I might well go back and add that in. And so the revenue stream is the sale of electricity. You have a monthly bill based on the tariff and the rate that you've agreed to pay for electricity. Upselling, not a lot. For larger companies on the industrial and the commercial basis, housing developers, etc., there will be connection fees for putting in a substation and connecting them to the grid, but that's likely to be well under a few percentage of revenue. It's possible that they also have some project management for networks. They've also got a number of other offshore efforts, but again, these aren't really material to the overall business model. So the key resources, you've got generating capacity. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but they're just bringing in this year a new capacity, 1400 megawatts. People are going to say on this, okay, Tenaga, what about the solar power? What about the the renewables, I mean, there are two major projects on. I can't remember the names, but the one is a new power station, 1,400 megawatts of traditional coal or gas. I can't remember. The other one. Sorry, I'm on the balcony, and we do get cars occasionally. The other one, the big project they've got is 30 megawatts of solar power. It's 1.5% the size of the other big projects. So they don't consider renewables to be a big part of the generating capacity at the moment. Though I think there is about 10% of capacity is hydro. Okay, so once you've generated it, you need to transmit it from the power stations, because we don't have power stations in the middle of cities any longer. Broadly, the power stations are at the cheapest place to get the fuel, the coal, the gas, the oil, or the water power, or the sun even. That's where we build the power stations, because it's cheaper to transmit the electricity over high voltage lines. And no, we can't quite see it, but in that white space on the hill over there is a high voltage line bringing electricity into Kuala Lumpur. Then you got the distribution network bringing it in from the substations down to individual houses like my house. These are the key resources, and you've got this huge, very capital intensive network of electricity distribution and generation assets that is at the core of Tenaga's business. Somebody who wants to compete has got to spend 5, 10, 20 billion dollars to create something equivalent, and that is disproportionately costly. And so Tenaga has a local monopoly. Started in 1949. It's protected by law in many ways, and 30-something% of the company is owned by government or government-linked companies. So how does it deliver the value proposition with these resources? Okay, first of all, you've got the plant operations, making sure that the power stations keep running, that the load, there is the right amount of load electricity for the demand being required, more during the day, less at night. And then also the network management, which is basically making sure that electricity can flow effectively through the network to where it's needed, like almost like a set of pipes. If you got too much pressure in one point or too low pressure in another point, you've got problems. And it's exactly the same with the electricity, making sure that all the load is balanced. And then you've got connections and customer service, connecting new people in a developing country like Malaysia. There's a lot of new properties being connected constantly, and also the customer service, basically managing these customer relationships. Finally, you've got the project management with the big projects like the new power stations, the new transmission lines, etc., being added into to bolster the capacity of the network. And those are new build stuff, and so come out of the remit of day-to-day operations. So your key partners really are the power station builders. Pay them a lot of money. I'm pretty damn certain that Tenaga doesn't build power stations itself. It's all outsourced to contractors to deliver to its specification. Possibly it doesn't even write the specification. It goes to a civil engineering consultancy to do everything beyond the very highest level. And again, the key partners providing the switch gear and all the routing network hardware and software to basically make sure that you're not having your fuses blown on a very regular basis. And then, because coming back to the key resources, we said it was a local monopoly. That is key. One of its key partner is the energy regulator in Malaysia. Because it's monopoly, in theory, it can basically charge whatever it wants and screw everybody, overprice it. And so it has requirements about the maximum amount of profit it can make in certain different ways, and so it needs to keep the regulator happy, whilst also keeping the shareholders happy by providing a suitable dividend and return. So the cost structure, biggest, probably one of the largest parts is the fuel. I couldn't break this out of the accounts, but basically the power stations are burning vast amounts of oil, of gas, etc., and that is going to be a huge part of the costing. And just a point on the network management here, there will be trading and commodities desks making sure that the fuel is bought at the lowest possible price with forward options, etc., etc. Network maintenance, keeping the network up and running. In Malaysia, it's jungle country. There are lots of trees and they don't have very deep roots, and in a big storm they fall on power lines. It's one of the common sights to see the Tenaga guys going out and keeping their transmission cables clear of any trees within about 50 meters so you don't get electricity disruption. And of course the normal maintenance, payroll, again, it's an absolutely massive head count. Somebody shared some figures for me a while back of the pension scheme, and it was like, whoa, this is really large. I mean, tens and tens of thousands of people on the payroll. And yeah, and because it's one of the few heavy electricity companies in the country, pretty much it has to develop and train all its own electrical engineers to be providing the network services it needs. And then finally, Malaysia is a rapidly growing country with a growing economy. That means more houses, more factories, bigger factories. That means more demand for electricity, and so there is a continual demand for new power stations with the very large capital expenditure there. Right, and that is the Tenaga Nasional business model put out on the business model canvas very, very quickly. What I'm going to try and do now is a few things that I do for my corporate customers. So we've got this, and then we can map out a few different things that help us to understand the business model. I will say that from now on, what I've put on doesn't reflect reality. One, because it takes me quite a lot of time, days or weeks to do this with a client to get it right. So this is just indicative. So what we can do is we can map out the performance. So how are different parts of the business model performing? Green is good, red is bad, orange is okay, and we can see, broadly speaking, which parts of the business models are probably. So in this case, my made up ideas, they've got a problem with the cost structure. The fuel is too expensive and they haven't got enough money to make the capital expenditure, or they're having to pay too much capital. What does that mean? How is that then going to affect the rest of the business model? So we can start asking interesting questions there. And this is one of the early stages when you start doing business model innovation. What is working now? Where are the problems? Taking another look at this, we've got a workbook of about 60 or 70 specific tests looking at the threats, the business model here. And in this case, broadly speaking, the red ones are facing high levels of threat. Again, this does not reflect, the colors here don't reflect reality, it's just an example. And the green ones represent where there are no particular threats to that part of the business model. So for example, here you might say, okay, there's a problem with power station builders. What are the threats there? Is that part of the world getting disrupted? Is it getting consolidated? So there is a single dominant power station builder, which is going to cause lots of problems to other things. Is the government challenging the local monopoly because they've captured there's been regulatory capture of the energy regulator and prices are too high? So these are the sort of things that you can start teasing out when you do the threats. And again, this is just made up color coding at the moment and doesn't reflect Tenaga. The next one is, okay, well, if you want to change a company and have a new business model, then many of the things, what you need to do is, where are the people inside the company who are capable of change and who are going to be able to deliver this innovation? And here, broadly speaking, we see that the backside of the company, you've got a lot of engineers who aren't particularly innovative and are going to be resistant to change. And yet you've got over here the customer facing side, and on the sales side and in the finance side, you've got a lot of people who are doing a lot of innovative things. So if you want to change the whole company, you can broadly expect that you are going to get interesting changes over in this side, and not a lot is going to happen here. And if you need stuff to happen here, that's going to be a problem for your change program. And then finally, let's have a look at the architectural rigidity. This is basically based on the idea that some businesses, businesses are run by managers. Managers are rewarded for competency. Competency is basically, can you reduce the price or deliver more for the same price in all the different business functions? And as you do that, as you apply management to business, parts of the business model, they become less and less flexible as they become more and more optimized to what they're doing. That normally is a very, very good thing. But when you want to change and you want to break and become less efficient so you can move to a new way of doing things, those are blockages to change the business model. And so running these assessments on TNB, which we haven't done, but if we had run these assessments, this would then give us a framework and a lot of knowledge and understanding to help us then go out and figure out business model innovations and generate new business models that would then help TNB, Tenaga Nasional, transform its business model and go into the future as if its business model was being disrupted and no longer capable of delivering the goods. Anyway, so my name's Denis Oakley. This is me talking about Tenaga Nasional's business model canvas. I work for startups, helping them figure out how to disrupt industries, and I work for corporates, helping them to either protect their business models or move to a new business model and preserve and protect their revenues for future generations.